Hey, I have a second channel. Cube Comp MTDX. Hey everybody. Here we have this old enhanced Micro-ATX power supply out of a, I want to say early 2002, late 2001, early 2002 eMachines computer. I forget the exact model of computer it came out of, but it was it was one of the late beige eMachines. It was before they went to the newer style. I guess they call it the next gen chassis. Before they switched over to Best Tech for their power supplies. This was it's a 200 watt power supply. Of course, Micro-ATX. It was powering a socket 478 Pentium 4 Willamette core CPU, pretty low end motherboard, onboard graphics, SD-RAM PC 133, I believe. I think I had either 256 or 380 megs, maybe 512 megs, I can't remember for sure. Had one optical drive, one hard drive, and that was it. So there's your look at your spec label. So the reason why I got this thing apart is because I just got done putting a whole new set of output cables on it. This unit, quite some time ago, I repurposed this thing from a computer power supply to instead power a Peltier fridge. It was actually a wine cooler. It wasn't technically it wasn't like your typical thermoelectric fridge. It was actually a wine cooler. And since I wasn't exactly impressed with the performance of the fridge, I ended up not using it, and this power supply just sat in storage. The thing is, when I repurposed this unit to power that thing, I pretty much gutted the wires except for the plus 12 volt and the 5 volt standby. I used the 5 volt standby to power a little LED display on the front that would show the temperature and things like that. That way it would show the temperature at all times, and I wired up the ground and power supply on to a thermostat. Yeah, the controls in the fridge actually ran on 5 volts, and it was, as part of it, you use a thermostat, and I had the, of course, again, the 5 volt standby running those controls. It's a little circuit board in the front with the display of the temperature and a thermostat, and when it would call for cooling, it would basically turn on the power supply and turn on the Peltier element and the fans and all that good stuff. So the wires were pretty hacked up, so I decided, since this unit is built so well, I decided to give it another chance at life as a computer power supply. And I figured I'd take the opportunity to show you guys this thing. So this again is a 200 watt supply, kind of 5 volt heavy, of course, for its time. It's early Pentium 4 ready power supply, but it shouldn't have any issue powering, let's say, like a low end modern CPU. Something that pulls like 65 watts or less. I have to say, this thing has never had any capacitors replaced, and not a single capacitor in this thing is bulging. This thing has a mixture of TPO capacitors and Jamicons. Jamicons, they are kind of known to fail, but I can say it seems that perhaps the older ones that have this style vent, you can see that it's not the Y-shaped vent, but it's kind of a a little different. That style vent, it seems like the older Jamicon caps with that vent are a little more reliable. Either that or they just fail without bulging, but I kind of have my doubts there. So again, TPOs and Jamicons in this thing, and none of them are bulging, which is really kind of shocking in my opinion, because this unit, the old eMachines computer was in, used the power supply as its exhaust fan. So all the heat that was generated by that P4, now that particular P4 wasn't a very hot running P4, but because it was a Willamette, it wasn't like a Prescott or nothing like that. But you had the heat generated by the system being sucked out by this thing, and of course the heat it generates added to it. So I remember years ago, it was a neighbor's computer. I remember working on the thing and stuff like that. I remember when it was doing, when it was in use, you could feel behind the power supply, and the air coming out it felt almost like a heater, like a little portable space heater. So it really is kind of a shock that the capacitors in this thing have not failed. Somewhere I got a PCB I just salvaged out of an old Bestech ATX 100-5 from that HP project, and almost all the caps on it were bulging except for the primaries. But I must say that with this unit here, that Enhance, which is the OEM of this unit, I'd say they did a pretty dang good job packing this thing together. I mean, it is tight in there. So you got your voltage selection switch, you got your AC power socket there, you got your EMI filter starting right on top of the AC plug, and then feeding down into this PCB where you have this X cap up on top of the AC input. You got another X cap there. You got two Y class ceramic caps there. You got two coils, actually three if you consider that a coil. I mean, you got your supply wires wound around a ferrite core. So actually, no, I see a total of three. Yes, there's three coils. This one there, and those two down there. Got an Ntc Thermistor. Get right back in there. You got varistors in there too, I believe, somewhere. Yeah, that's crazy. They actually got the AC input going all over to here. Like I said, they had to cram this thing together. So over here we got our bridge rectifier. You got two ceramics behind that, ceramic caps. Got these 330 microfarad primary caps here. Got a Y-class capacitor there. Oh, the varistors are behind the MOVs are actually behind these two electrolytics here. They're kind of down in there. You can see them right. They're blue. Got two varistors for surge protection. You've got. Now, I'm not an absolute pro at naming power supply unit topology off the top of my head. I'm going to say maybe this is a single transistor forward. I see one switcher there. It's definitely not anything like half bridge. It's definitely a newer topology, more efficient. Crazy, they got the input fuse right next to the main transformer. Like I said, they got the AC input stuff way over here. It's kind of crazy how this thing's laid out. So you got your main transformer there, and you got your secondary rectifiers over there for your 3.3, your +5, and your +12. And over here, right next to the front, you got your 5-volt standby generation. This one may be 2 transistor, which is definitely not the best out there. But I will say there was a lot of power supplies out there with 2 transistor that ran just fine for many years and never blew up motherboards or things like that. I do see a switching transistor there with the heatsink on it. I think that's a switcher for your 5-volt standby. I see the transistor on the heatsink. I also see a transistor right next to it. Don't see any IC, so I'm going to say this is probably 2 transistor. So one thing I'll definitely have to do before I ever decide to put this back into a computer is when I test it, test the no-load 5-volt standby and make sure it's behaving itself. But, you got your, of course, massive heatsink for the secondary rectification. Good size heatsink there, and it helps catch a lot of the. It gets a lot of cooling from the fan right above it, because the fan literally sits right above these 2 heat sinks. And over here you got your toroid coils. You got what appears to be you see some pi filters in there. That's what they seem to call them. We got our various capacitors for the outputs. See your 3.3 volts on the far left, or excuse me, far right when you're looking at it from here. 5 volts next to that, and 12 volts is back over there. And of course, this unit, being as an older unit, has not only minus 12 but minus 5 volts. There's a little white wire going in there for minus 5. And you got your power good and your power supply on hookups right there. 5 volt standby is fed from right there. This power supply has an additional little daughter board right there that has a supervisory chip, among other things. Stuff that drives the main switchers on it, good stuff. So yeah, definitely jam-packed together. That's how these Micro-ATX units were done. That's pretty much how they had to design them. They had to cram it all together, and that's why these Micro-ATX power supplies generally don't have nearly as high of wattage outputs as their bigger cousins. You know, the standard, I think, PS2 size power supply. Yeah. Let's get you a look at the bottom of the PCB. And like I said, this thing was pretty much used. The fan on this unit was pretty much used as the exhaust fan for the entire system. Trying to get a look here, and if you look carefully at the PCB, you may see right over here how the traces look a little darkened. I think it's safe to say that primary side got a little warm there. Like I said, this thing got, like I said, it was used as the exhaust fan for the entire system. So the warm air coming from inside the system was getting sucked through this thing. There was no other case fans on the computer itself. And you can see where I soldered in all the replacement cables, and the soldering is definitely not the best quality, but I mean, it was the best I could do. Definitely a tricky job getting all those wires in there. I started with the I started with the plus 12, and then the ground, and then the plus 5, and the plus 3.3. And then I soldered in all the little auxiliary connections, like your 5 volt standby, your 3.3 cents, your minus 5, minus 12, power good, and power supply on. So they're all hooked up. And this unit, I want to say when it was new, or original I should say, when it was, before I hacked the wires off of it years ago, it had a 20-pin mATX motherboard connection. It had a 4-pin CPU power connection. Had a floppy connection, and probably 2 to 4 4-pin mATX connections. Now it has a 20 plus 4-pin connection. It has your 4-pin connection for the CPU power. It has a total of 4 4-pin mATX connections, a floppy connection there, and I also threw in a SATA connection as well. Not sure what I would use. I'm not sure what I would throw this in, but I did go in and install a SATA power connection just in case, and if I need more SATA power, I can just use adapters or hack on SATA leads onto one of these, for example. So all I like on this is throwing this thing back into its case and back porch testing it to see if it blows up or if it works. And if it works, then that'd be great. So I'm gonna go and toss it back into the case, and I'll wrap up the video. Okay, so the unit's back together now with its new wires, and of course these are kind of on the thin side. They came off a cheap end unit that I scrapped some time ago, but provided this thing works, might be able to use it again. I mean, I'd hate hate to scrap a decently built Micro-ATX unit like this. I mean, it's, like I say, it's an old one from 2001 or 2002, but hey, I'd say it would still be good for a little project. Either powering an old system or powering a newer system, who knows. So again, there's your spec label. It only can supply 10 amps on the plus 12 volt rail, which I think is about in line with the 200 watt supply. Now of course, eMachines, after they moved on from Enhance, they started using Bastec. And I tell you, that's probably a big mistake on their part, because the Bastec ATX 25012E power supply had a design flaw, and it was infamous for the 5 volt standby rail going crazy and frying motherboards. I mean, the crazy thing was, back when a lot of those eMachine systems were starting to, with that Bastec unit, was starting to fry their motherboards. The old eMachine with this enhanced unit just kept right on moving along. Matter of fact, it never did actually die. I eventually built them a newer system, and that's how I ended up with this thing. I just parted out the system. Like I say, it was an old Pentium 4 socket 478 motherboard with PC 133 SD RAM, not even DDR, so definitely wasn't all that great of a setup. Anyways, hope y'all enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.
Well, everybody, that wraps it up for this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like the video. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and be sure to tick that bell so you'll get notified when new videos are posted. Also, don't forget, I have a whole lot of other interesting videos here on the channel to check out. And also, in addition, I have a second channel, CubeComp-MTDX, where I have all sorts of other videos not exactly related to technology. Links to the channels are available at the end of this video. Again, I thank you for your support, and thanks for watching this video.